Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast. Today we're talking about Dr. Joseph Graves Jr., his science, his story, and how it connects to us bio majors at CSUF.
Reading his interview, I loved how he said his high school teachers and that blue book on evolution pulled him into biology and how it completely changed how we thought about life and science. I like how real he sounded, like he was just a curious student that just started asking questions.
Same here. It made me think about the teachers who got me interested in science. Like one class can really set the tone for your whole career. For me, it was my seventh grade science class that made me realize science was my favorite subject.
Totally. And for him, it started there and led all the way to being the first African American to get a PhD in his field at Wayne State. That's a huge accomplishment.
And then he went on to a postdoc at UC Irvine, right? UC Irvine is just around the corner. Postdoc positions always sound so intense, like you're expected to grow into an independent researcher. That just sounds so unattainable as an undergrad student.
Exactly. His path really shows how long it takes to get tenure. It's not just undergrad to grad school, it's years of persistence. What I found inspiring is that he didn't let barriers stop him. Seeing someone so persistent as him inspired me to believe that I can reach that level too.
Yeah, and looking at his CV, it's stacked. He's worked on so many different fields in biology, such as bacterial adaptation, nanoparticles, the evolution of aging, and human genetics. He really made a name for himself as an evolutionary biologist. His section for advice to students really stood out to me because the tone of the piece is blunt and direct. It doesn't sugarcoat the realities of academics and personal growth. The advice pushes against excuses and forces the reader to really look at the.
What stood out to me, though, was how he ties all of that to back to social justice. He says his science is about making the world safer and fairer. He advocates for science to be used ethically and responsibly. I remember reading a part in The Belly of the Beast where there was a comment said about if they were picking an applicant with the same credentials, but picking between a Chinese or a black person, the Chinese would be picked every time.
That's what hit me too in The Belly of the Beast. He talks about the unwritten rules of academia and how students of color often aren't taught them. Although I feel like even though many people have not read the article, there are still many students of color who have some idea of these rules. I have heard these rules before. Not exactly these rules, but they carry the same value. When you're in a space where your race, ethnicity, or gender is not the minority, you automatically stand out. When you stand out in this way, you are often a target to be excessively scrutinized for something that your white male colleagues may not be. These rules, I believe, are something that a lot of non-male, non-white students mutually understand in a way. Unfortunately, these are needed in order to be successful in a field where you are the minority.
Yeah, like networking, finding mentors, or even just understanding how bias plays out. That's not written in a textbook. And I feel like we're just expected to know how to navigate things like grad school or research opportunities, but no one really teaches you those steps. I appreciated that he called it out instead of pretending the system is equal for everyone because it's not.
Exactly. And honestly, I could relate to that. Sometimes it feels like there's this hidden playbook in college that you only get if someone lets you in on it. Connections are everything these days.
Right? And it makes you realize how much harder it can be for first gen or minority students who don't have those connections. Falling into the category of being a minority makes it a little harder to navigate the system they've created. The lack of connection can cause missed opportunities or having to figure out things on your own.
And he's also real about his struggles with mental health. This made me pause because you don't usually hear top professors admit that. It's very humanizing to me. Being in a space where you aren't represented or where there isn't anyone who looks like you can mentally affect not only your attitude towards the subject, but also your attitude towards your own abilities.
Yeah, it actually made me respect him more. It's like if he can be open about that and still succeed, then maybe it's okay for us to admit when we're struggling too. I think a lot of students, especially those in STEM, feel pressured to act like everything is fine all the time. Dr. Graves talking about his own challenges made it clear that struggling doesn't make you less capable, it makes you human. And honestly, hearing that from someone like him is really comforting.
Totally. School can feel overwhelming, and hearing him say that was kind of validating. He was so real and vulnerable throughout his article, something you don't see very often in professional literature. Hearing someone like Dr. Graves talk about his anxiety or doubts makes the idea of becoming a scientist feel more realistic. It's not about being perfect, it's about staying determined.
It also shows that caring for yourself isn't separate from success, it's a part of it. I feel like we tend to have tunnel vision towards the work we do as biologists. That's that it's a field that glorifies being overworked with long days, papers, and labs, etc. And this was a reminder that achieving things comes from balance and not burnout.
On the science side, I thought it was really cool that he worked in the same field as Lenski's E. coli experiment. Even though we have not gone into too much detail about the experiment in class yet, it's interesting to hear more about the people who are doing the experiment than just the experiment itself. It makes you realize that a lot of these scientists doing groundbreaking experiments are just normal people.
Yeah, but he applied it to real world problems like nanoparticle resistance and antibiotic resistance. That's such a practical use of evolutionary biology. What I love is that he's not just repeating old experiment, he's expanding them and finding new ways to use evolutionary theory to solve health issues. It's a reminder that even the stuff we are learning now can lead to discoveries that matter outside the lab.
I liked that connection too. We've studied those concepts in class, and he shows how they're applied outside of the classroom. The connections to the real world showed me that all the different topics of biology I learned in my undergraduate years can be applied when I graduate.
Exactly. It makes the science feel more alive, like it's not just something in a textbook.
And then, if you look at his Google Scholar, he's published so much on race and biology. It's so cool how his research is multidisciplinary. And not only that, but he continues to work on things he's passionate about, that being science and social injustice.
That's important because people still think race is biological, especially in medicine. His work shows it's a social construct, but racism itself still affects health outcomes. It takes courage to speak about those things, about those issues in academia, but he does it anyway. I think that makes his research not just relevant, but revolutionary.
Right? That part stood out to me too. It's not just about proving something scientifically, it's about how science shapes real lives. And what I liked is that he's using his credibility as a researcher to educate people, not just other scientists. He's trying to reach the public too. That's something I really admire because it shows that being a good scientist also means being a good communicator.
And honestly, that's one of the reasons I admire him as well. He uses his research to challenge misconceptions and push for social change. He shifts the focus to how racism shapes health and opportunity, which is very transformative.
If I met him, I think I'd ask him how he kept going through grad school when things got really tough, both with science and with discrimination. I would also like to ask him in the Belly of the Beast article, he mentions in the unwritten rules that it is best to avoid antagonizing the big men in your field. Was there any point in his career where he had no choice but to antagonize them, whether it be about a certain belief or disagreement on a subject?
I'd ask him what I'd ask him what advice he'd give for preparing a postdoc. That stage feels kind of mysterious to me, and it'd be nice to hear how to approach it. I'd also want to know what mindset he carried through all those transitions, like from student to researcher to professor.
I'd like to know how he balances research and advocacy. Like, how do you do both at such a high level without burning out? It's something I think about a lot because so many scientists focus only on their labs, but he manages to publish, mentor, and still speak out about equity. That kind of balance takes discipline and heart.
For me, it'd be advice for first-gen students. Throughout the article, he's expressed how unfair the access to STEM education is for underrepresented students, specifically Black students. His article gave tips, but I'd love to hear more about his top piece of advice for someone who doesn't know the unwritten rules.
You know what else I thought about? How Dr. Gurry's made a point that mentorship can really change a person's whole career. He talked about how mentors open doors for him, and it made me realize how important it is for us to do the same someday.
Yeah, that really stood out to me too. It's not just about the individual's success, it's about lifting up others. And that mindset isn't something you hear often in science.
So, wrapping it up, his story shows that science isn't just about experiments. It's also about who gets access, who gets supported, and how the field grows more inclusive.
Yeah, and his career proves persistence really matters. What I'm taking away is that being a scientist isn't just about publishing papers, it's about using your platform to make things better for the next generation.
And that biology connects to bigger social issues. It's not just about data, it's about people too. Throughout his article, Graves points out that learning often feels like being in the belly of the beast. It's confusing, frustrating, and intimidating, but that's when the growth happens. This metaphor resonated with me because I could connect it to times I've struggled in school, but came out stronger afterward. It made me see my current challenges differently, not as signs that I'm failing, but as necessary steps in becoming more resilient.
I believe Dr. Graves gave us a new perspective about being scientists. It's about breaking those barriers and using your knowledge to make change. I found his story pretty reliable and insightful. It's important to stay true to your values and continue being persistent for your goals. It's also inspiring that he doesn't just focus on achievements, but also mental health and justice. I'm excited to read more about Dr. Graves challenging us to think critically and be able to apply it to the whole world around us. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope this gave you a new perspective on what it means to be a scientist.